That's one thing. And the other is getting a more granular understanding of what EB2 NIW is. What are some of those scary terms that we see, like proposed endeavor? What is that? So Helen is going to kick us off with a 20 to 25-minute description of EB2 NIW, what it is, what are the requirements, what you need to know. And then the rest of the hour is going to be you driving the conversation. That is you asking Q&As to Helen, and that's going to kick off around 12:35 p.m. and we are going to go to the top of the hour at till 1. So Helen, with that, I'll give it off to you. And thank you again for hosting this and getting us one more step toward control and freedom of our lives.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. So, brief introduction. I'm Helen Partlow. I'm licensed in Massachusetts and New York. I'm physically in New York, on Long Island. My office, Waypoint Immigration, they are in Massachusetts near Boston. So that's who I work with is Amber Davis. That's where she is. She's up in there, up in Boston also. So I'm going to share my screen here to show, let's see, hopefully this works. All right. I'm thinking this is working.
Yep, it's working. You have to allow.
All right. Oh, what did I just press? I think I might have pressed something else. Okay. Can you see? Oh no, I think I shared the wrong screen. Sorry, I'm going to share a different one. I'm used to Google Meet, so just bear with me for a second. I think this one should work now. This one looks a little better. All right, good. All right, excellent. So we're here to talk about the EB2 NIW. So that's the employment-based second preference national interest waiver. And I'm going to start off here by saying, what the heck is that thing? So EB2 NIW second preference, this is part of the employment-based visas, except you are the sponsor. You sponsor yourself. You don't have to involve your employer. And that also means that you have freedom to move to a different employer. So it doesn't really make a difference, so to speak, what your employer is. It's just showing how you can help impact America. So that's kind of what you have to do. You can't really shift from one industry to the next. It has to all align together in the same kind of pathway. So this also allows individuals with exceptional abilities or advanced degrees. And when I say advanced degree, I mean bachelor's plus 5 years of progressive experience or a master's degree plus, so PhD, etc. And the entire point of this is the national interest of the United States. So you have to show that what you are doing helps benefit the country is interested in also benefiting the same thing, and that you kind of have the same goals as America. So the idea is to help America in whatever you are doing. And that is why you get to then bypass the whole employer sponsoring part by showing this extra sort of interest that you and America both have. So going back to the criteria to see if you're eligible. So advanced degree, master's degree or higher, like I said, or bachelor's degree, plus 5 years of progressive experience. So when I say the progressive experience part, that means that you want to show that you got promoted, that you could also show, like, between companies, that maybe company A, you started off like entry level and then you got hired at company B and it was a higher level job. You just don't want to show that you've stayed stagnant through that time. You want to show that you've continuously tried to excel and, advance your experience and things like that. So that's what I mean about progressive experience. So most of our clients come in on this route where they have a master's degree or higher. We find it to be a lot more likely to be approved if you do have that master's degree or higher. That doesn't mean that you can't get approved with bachelor's degree plus the 5 years. That's also fine. It just needs a little bit more explanation and perhaps documentation to show the progressive 5-year part. So if you are currently getting your master's, I would definitely probably recommend just in general to wait for that diploma in hand. It's going to make your life a little less complicated, easier to prove, that sort of a thing. However, you can still be eligible even if you don't have a bachelor's degree. So in that instance, you have to show exceptional ability. So that's what that means. Exceptional ability is for people that do not have a bachelor's, do not have a master's, etc. So in that case, you have to show that you meet 3 out of the 6 recommended criteria. So one of them, they're all listed here. The first one is academic record relating to your industry. Maybe you have like a certificate or a technical, you went to like a technical school, something that's related to your field. It has to show that you have some sort of academic credential. You have 10 plus years of experience in your industry, and this can be shown by like letters of verification between your employers to kind of make sure that you have that 10 full years. And it can have it can't have any gaps. So if it takes 15 years for you to prove that 10-year of experience, then that's what you'd have to do. So it has to be 10 actual years. It does not have to be consecutive. It just, once you kind of compile it all together, it has to be 10 years. Then the next one is a license or certification, and that is in order to do your job. You have to have a license or certification. Like, to do my job as an attorney, I have to have a license. I cannot be an attorney without a license. So that's kind of like the idea. You would not be able to do your job unless you had that particular license. The next one is to show that you have been paid for your services. Typically, we don't work for free, right? So we get a salary and get paid for our services. That's one way. The next one is a membership in a professional association. So this one would have to be an association in your industry that you are a member of. And it can't be just any association. It has to be specific to you. It's not something that I could just join. It has to be someone with that expertise only can join. Recognition for achievements and significant contributions, that you can kind of get creative with. So sometimes people use awards, or if they've had a publication, or they've had like they've been to a conference and they were a speaker at a conference, things like that. And then number 7 is just comparable evidence. So this list is not like the end all be all sort of list. If you have something that's similar that doesn't quite fit into this box but might be able to be used, then that also can be used. But obviously, if you can use 3 of these, it'll have a stronger chance, just because you don't really want to have to give the USCIS officer a chance to like make their own conclusion. You want to make the conclusion for them. You want to say, this is exactly what I've done, this is exactly how it meets, and things like that. And if anyone hears a cat, my cat is here meowing. Okay, so proposed endeavor, I know was mentioned a little bit earlier. It's one of those fancy terms that people talk about, but a proposed endeavor is just the plan. It's not anything that's more than that, really. The proposed endeavor is what your future plan is. So when you're doing an NIW, a lot of it is talking about what you already have done for certain sections. Some of it is talking about, why the U.S. is interested in this sort of thing. But then a good part of it is also talking about what your future plan is. So, how do you plan to impact America? How do you plan to impact your field? And proposed endeavor is all about as broad of an impact as you can get. So sometimes it depends on what your field is. Like, for instance, I've had a client that did something with like weather models and things, we're predicting like hurricanes and bad storm events. And that particular client that we had to do with wildfires. And there's not wildfires all over America. That's, very much a California thing. I mean, of course, there could be in other places too, but that is, when everyone here thinks about wildfires, you think of California. So that impact would be pretty much to a region. It wouldn't necessarily be to the country as a whole, but you could make it, you could still talk about a region of the country if it's something that might only impact a region. But the bigger, the better. If you can have it impact the country as a whole, that is great if it impact your industry. They basically want to see how does what you are doing help anyone other than your employer or other than your clients. Like if you're thinking about only your company and only your clients, that's not really helpful for an NIW. How does what you do help everybody? How does it break through just helping your employer, and how does it help the industry, the country itself? So this is what your plan is to do. So, for going back to that client with the wildfire, their proposed endeavor would be something like, I want to help advance, I don't remember their specific proposed endeavor, but, I want to help predict weather models. I plan on doing that by doing X, Y, Z. And then you can kind of show how that would be beneficial to America, not just saving lives and saving property and, doing all of that, but that also then helps the economy by not having, um, not having a wildfire obviously can then help the economy. So you kind of like take these things and jump from one thing to the next. But this really is the foundation of the NIW. This is something that pretty much everything is based upon. Your proposed endeavor should also be related to your education. Sometimes people flip-flop through industries. You can only talk about the experience that you have through your proposed endeavor. So if you started off and you were in healthcare for some reason, and then you switched over to be a chemical engineer, you would not be able to use any of your healthcare experience to talk about your chemical engineering proposed endeavor. So just want to keep that in mind, that if you are someone that did swap industries, you have to pretty much have everything align with the proposed endeavor. Otherwise, it does not really support it. So just a couple quick things that are on the screen here at the bottom. You want to make sure that it's clear and it's specific. It can't just be done by anybody. It has to be specific to someone with your kind of skills. It should be relevant, should have relevance to the national interest, how it'll help solve a problem in America. And then again, it will circle back to your skills and experience. So the first part of the petitions that I always work on, we first talk about if the person's qualified, education, etc. We describe the proposed endeavor, and then that proposed endeavor has to be supported by the 3 prongs of DANASAR. So the first one I broke up into 2 is substantial merit and national importance. Then we have well positioned and the balancing test. So these are the 3 things that you have to then dive into in the other parts. So talking about substantial merit, that's pretty much just saying what you're doing is important. So a lot of the time I've seen that this gets, accepted relatively easily, but just by showing that what you're doing, oh yes, it is important, it is helpful, it is that sort of a thing. Like, how is it going to help America and explain why it's worthy, that sort of a thing. The next one, national importance, that's the one that people definitely struggle more with. And that's just saying that America also has shown through legislation, through their different agencies, through the White House, things like that, that they also want to improve the things you are doing. So, I've had a client that wanted to come in and help improve the railroad infrastructure. So there's the Biden infrastructure bill that talks about how all these different areas they want to improve upon. So by saying that this client who wants to come and also help with railroad repairs and, high-speed trains and things like that, you can relate it back to evidence that the United States also wants to do these things through things like the Biden Infrastructure Act in that particular instance. So this is where you're really showing how your impact is beyond just your employer, just beyond your clients or customers. You want to show national or global implications. So you're influencing national and potentially global landscapes. You want to show how it impacts the economy. Is that going to help create jobs? Is it going to help just with our, bottom line economic growth? You want to show, is it going to help something with society, the cultural or artistic enrichment? I have also worked with clients that have done things with like the curriculum and things like that. And that's kind of where you can show your national importance through that way. And then the last one here is to show that the government, like I said, has already done different things through their agencies, through different legislation, through executive orders, things like that, that support the idea that they're also interested in improving the same things that you're trying to also improve. So substantial merit and national importance is lumped together under the first prong. Substantial merit, like I said, is easier to prove just because you want to say, yes, it's important. And national importance is really where, these four main bullet points, with a couple like subsections, is really where we get into the details, and we do our research, and we make sure that we, have copies of all of these initiatives as proof of the national importance. So then the second prong is well positioned. So this is where we talk all about you, the person applying for the NIW, about your education, about your experience. What kind of jobs have you had? What have you done in those jobs? Have you worked on anything in your industry? Do you have any publications? What kind of projects have you worked on? Maybe you won an award or you got something to acknowledge that, you worked hard, and, like a congratulatory email even. Maybe you have a membership at a professional association to show that you're constantly trying to learn and improve and network and take additional, educational credits as necessary or appropriate. Maybe you've been a speaker at a conference or something like that. So it's helpful to show things that you've done beyond just your particular job title and your job description. So, are you sharing your ideas with others in the industry? Are other people using those ideas? So, you don't have to have publications. That is definitely like an easier way to show if you do have publications, but not a lot of industries require publications. We have a lot of people in AI and machine learning and software engineers and things like that. And that's just not part of that industry. You don't do publications for that. So you don't have to have publications. You can show that your work has been, has more impact than that. And, it's just kind of showing that the proposed endeavor that, whatever the plan is that you have come up with for your NIW, this is showing that I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the education, etc., in order to do that proposed endeavor. So if the proposed endeavor was the wildfire idea, my background would not support that. I have absolutely no idea how and where to start with solving that problem. Obviously I'm an attorney in immigration. That's not my background. I would not be able to support that proposed endeavor. So it's just kind of saying that, okay, this is what the person wants to do. This is why they're capable of doing it, right? That's really what this is showing. And the last test is the balancing test. This is pretty much just saying that, by you coming in and bypassing the whole labor certification process, that it's not going to harm the American labor workforce. Maybe stating why it's impractical for you to get a job offer, how even if you are approved through your NIW, it's not going to hurt U.S. workers either because you are, uniquely qualified, you have some unique experience, a very niche sort of industry, or potentially because there's just not enough people to fill those empty roles in the job market. So there could be a work like a skill force labor gap, and there are just not enough people in that industry. So by taking you in, there's still not going to be enough people. You're not going to take a job away from American. That's pretty much what the balancing test is about. And also maybe like why it's urgent for you to come in. Again, I'm circling back a lot today to the wildfire scenario, but it's urgent for that problem to be solved because you could be saving lives, you could be saving property, you could be saving economic hardship for a region and that sort of a thing. So by circling back to that is also a good part of the balancing test. So a lot of people always ask me, how can I improve my case? Maybe they don't, maybe they're close to being able to have a strong application, but they're not quite there yet. So one of the first things I always say is to kind of stay organized and keep in the back of your mind as you know you're going through your education or you're getting an internship. Maybe you're, already in the job, you're already in the workforce. So keep a track of people that you make connections with, supervisors. A coworker is typically not as strong. If they're on the same level as you, you want someone that's at least like a supervisor or higher. Um, but we support these with letters of recommendation. So this is not required. Letters of recommendation, there's nowhere that says that you have to have letters of recommendation, but I find them to be extremely helpful, especially for those that don't have publications and don't have like that to show your impact. The letters of recommendation can really help do that. So it can, typically the ones that we write will discuss like your specific contribution that you've done on a project, how it was impactful, and that comes from whoever is signing it. The letters should be done by someone that's also in your field, so that way they would have the appropriate knowledge and background in order to comment on your contribution and that sort of a thing. Other ways to improve your case is, if it's appropriate, like I said, not all industries have publications, but if yours does, publications, citations, having a Google Scholar profile where you can show what citation numbers you have easily. If you've done presentations, even if they were internal, only to your company, that might still be beneficial to show that you're knowledgeable enough to kind of share knowledge within your company. But presentations at like conferences, like professional conferences, that's helpful if you're able to review, do any sort of peer review, or maybe they do like hackathons and things like that. If you're like in a judge role where you're judging other people's things, that's helpful. Some industries have patents and grants and research projects. If you can show that other people are also using your work that are not in your company, like maybe someone else through your work also has adopted this new idea of yours, it's good. Additional continued or specialized education. A lot of people in the tech field, have like those AWS certifications, and just showing that you have those extra technical skills. And I know that a lot of people are either like taught through their education these particular skills, and then some people are not. So if you have like additional documentation that you had taken these extra courses, it just shows that for the well positioned that you are capable of fulfilling or progressing towards your plan of your proposed endeavor. If you've gotten any sort of achievement awards, professional memberships, sometimes we also use like if you have like an email from your boss saying, "Oh, great job on project XYZ," that sort of a thing. It just shows how it's just another way to keep adding to your profile and showing more and more proof of what your background is. And I think that's pretty much coming to the end of what I wanted to say. There's so much more that I could say too. Okay, I guess before I finish, I'll mention an RFE. So RFE is request for evidence. So usually when you put in your first NIW application, they can reject some of the arguments, they can reject all of the arguments, and then they'll send you back a detailed letter that kind of tells you why they rejected it and what kind of evidence they want to see to kind of overcome whatever it is. So requests for evidence can certainly happen. That then you would just respond to that request for evidence by a certain date. So that one is definitely time specific. And that also gives you an idea as to maybe what you did not include the first time that you can still include to USCIS for your application. So that is just something to be aware of, that does unfortunately happen here and there. But this is our information. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Amber is very active on LinkedIn. And I just started up this week that I'm taking consultations for NIW. So you could always go to our website, waypointimmigration.org, and look for an appointment with us. We'll be happy to do any sort of individual assessment and talk over any strategy. And even if you're not quite ready for NIW yet, it's always good to kind of have a plan in mind. I always find the ones that are very successful are organized. So kind of having your everything's like in a PDF pretty much. So, having like digital copies of everything, having it labeled, what it is, and we're happy to help guide anybody specifically as to maybe what you could do to improve your profile if you're not already there yet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. I knew about it takes something to waive off firm, but I didn't know that it was called a balancing act. So it was really nice to
Yeah.
that. And that proposed endeavor is just a fancy thesaurus way of saying what's your plan. And also the fact that this is a viable option that a lot of folks are looking into to reduce their dependence on employers. So I'm going to kick off the Q&A session. I already see Nirmal has raised his hand. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'm going to go one by one through the queue. But this is a question that I have at the top of my mind, Helen, because this is something that people have asked and we don't have a straightforward answer. But I want to get a lawyer's perspective on this, especially as current students, incoming international students, and students on OPT who are doing a job. What are the implications of applying for your EB2 NIW while you're still on an F1 OPT visa?
Right. So if you're still on OPT, that's fine. We usually don't have any problems with people that are still F1 students that apply for NIWs. It gets a little bit trickier because obviously F1, your intent is supposed to be temporary, staying in America, right? And this is obviously showing that your intent has changed. So you definitely, want to never ever commit a misrepresentation at any point. You definitely want to be truthful, but it is probably best to wait until you're in your OPT and then go for NIW at that point. So then that way you're already kind of like in that first initial, some people do like graduate assistantships or, some sort of like entry level type of job and then apply for this. And we've done that with many clients and it's successful. But you do want to be careful just because the NIW is showing intent to permanently stay. So I would definitely suggest doing it after graduation while you're already in your approved OPT. But don't like wait too long because this is a whole process in and of itself. So want to make sure that you do it with enough time to, be able to kind of plan out the rest of what you want to do.
That's right. Yeah, it's not a race to the finish line. You have to be very careful as you're making these decisions because it's not just getting a green card ASAP. Nothing happens ASAP in US immigration. And you don't want to actively put yourself at the risk of deportation because that is a risk. And I was having a conversation with Amber over a common thread, and she said that it really comes down to the CBP officer. When you have gotten out of the US and coming in, and you can argue all you want about like how you're an F1 and you have an EB2 NIW, but you don't have immigrant intent, or there is some sort of clause in USCIS which lets you do so. At the end of the day, it comes down to the CBP officer. So
yeah, there's a lot of discretion.
There is a lot of discretion. Anywho, I see a whole bunch of hands. Here is a best practice to be mindful of everybody in the crowd. Please relegate your questions to one per person. And that means not one small question, one big question, one question. And then we are going to come back to you if there is still time. Nirmal, go for it.
Hey, thank you for the presentation and opportunity. My question is related to work experience. So let's say I have been working in X field, I want to switch to Y, and I have decided to build my profile at this point for the field of Y. So how much of a weightage that the relevant work experience plays?
So I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing everything, but it sounds like you want to say that you started in one industry and you're shifting to another industry. Is that right? So
Yes.
it depends on how much, how related it is. So sometimes, if you have a certain kind of educational degree, it can still support, multiple different types of job titles and stuff like that. It depends, are we talking about two completely different things, or are we talking about things that are kind of related? Maybe like I have made an argument where like some of your soft skills from one job might be transferable to another job. But you definitely don't want to make that be the basis of your application, because that would be considered pretty weak. You want to make sure
Okay.
that you have enough experience in the field in which you're intending to stay in.
Okay. What does enough mean? Can you quantify it if possible?
It's impossible to quantify because there's just so much discretion. It's up to the officer as to how strong of a case that you can make. So, I have worked with people that are relatively new, after their master's degree, they have like only a year or two of experience, and that seems to be fine a lot of the time. So we're not talking about anything that's like too substantial, but, I would say enough. You would need pretty much, I guess the right answer would be, you would need enough experience in your field to show that you had an impact beyond your employer.
Got it.
So that's why it's kind of different for everybody.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Aditi, and then Ayantika.
Hey, hi. Thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to know, I don't know if it was covered, I joined in a little late, but I wanted to know, I already have an approved I-140 through my current employer, and I wanted to know what would be the advantage if I do an EB2 NIW, like if I switch employment, how does that really help? Like what advantage does it have?
So if you have an I-140 through your current employer, you have to stay with that employer by the time you're able to adjust your status. You still have to be with that employer. With the NIW, you just have to be in the field. So your proposed endeavor still has to be, like, you still have to be in that pathway that you set out. So you're able to switch job to job as needed. So you don't have to say no to any sort of opportunity that comes up. Maybe someone is offering you something really great and the salary is great. You're like excited, but you don't really want to go because the employer you're with has your I-140 and you want to, make sure that you still have that. So if you switch employers with your I-140, that is no longer valid. You'd have to get a new I-140 with your new employer. So you'd have to start the process over again. With the NIW, it stays with you. So the NIW part of the I-140, that's why it's really gives more chance for opportunity. You can switch from employer to employer and kind of like chase whatever it is that you're looking for.
Okay, got it. And the time to process it, okay, that's the second question. So I think I'll give another chance to someone else. But yeah, thank you so much.
Aditi,
Yeah.
you can answer the question. Oh my God, she's like, oh my God, I've broken the rules.
Like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble.
But yeah, no, but so she's finished the question.
No, I just wanted to know that the processing times for EB2 and NIW, is it the same for EB1A and B? EB2?
No.
Okay.
So the regular process for EB2 and NIW, if you don't do premium processing, it's probably more like 8 months, except it's just they have it can vary wildly. So there are a few, like I think we have one client that's been waiting over a year. But if you have premium processing, it's $2,805, but you'll get an answer within 45 calendar days. I mean, business days. Sorry, they just changed that within 45 business days. But so it's like it doesn't make you get your green card any quicker. It just helps you have a peace of mind that it was accepted, or if there was an RFP that was triggered or not.
Got it. Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you.
Awesome.
Sure.
Ayantika and then Bhusal.
Hi, thanks, Ellen, for your time. So, my question was around the process. So from my understanding, you pay, I guess, I need to first get my I-140 approved, and then when my date is current, I apply for I-485. and then at the same time I can apply for the EAD. Can I do all these three together, like right at the beginning when I'm submitting I-1? Okay.
No, unfortunately, you cannot. So, yeah, they used to do concurrent filing, but that was back when their visa bulletin was better. So you have to do the I-140 now, and that's, you know, the EB2 NIW I-140. Then you have to wait for your priority date to become current. So the date that it is received by USCIS, I kind of write it down, that's your priority date. And assuming that you get approved, you have to then wait for your priority date to come current in the visa bulletin. And then at that point, you would file for your adjustment of status. And you know, the having an I-140 approved does not give you an EAD, so you still cannot work until you get that green card part of the process. So you would, if you wanted to work, you'd have to still go through a different avenue, like an H-1B or something.
Oh, I see. There's no way to get an EAD before the 485 filing. Okay,
No.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Awesome. You, Gusal?
Thank you, Helen. My question is kind of similar to the earlier question, but it's the other way around. Let's say your proposed endeavor is in the healthcare and your publications and research has all been in the healthcare. You've been in this space for the last 10 plus years, but your current job, current occupation is in the retail space, for example. How do you position this switch, this change in a way that it doesn't hurt you for the NIW application?
Well, you would either have to go back and get a job back in healthcare if that was going to be your proposed endeavor, or you would have to just build up the retail experience. And you would not, I don't really know of, I mean, I'd have to like see the specific jobs and the descriptions if there's any overlap, but I mean, just off the cuff, it doesn't sound like there's any overlap. So you would have to just kind of build up the background again if you wanted to continue in the retail space.
Yeah, I'm in the analytics data science space, so I was thinking more about like a transferability of the skill set from one
You were
domain.
doing data analytics in healthcare?
Yes, data
Okay,
analytics.
then your proposed endeavor would be data analytics. And then you can, like, same thing with people with like AI and machine learning, data analytics, you can pretty much advance through multiple different types of industries. So, you know, you would just say that your proposed endeavor is in data analytics and you have, you know, whatever skills you've developed through the healthcare is transferable to the retail space.
Okay.
It's the data analytics skill that you would focus on, not the healthcare and not the retail.
Okay.
Whitney?
Thank you for the session and for the opportunity to ask some questions. I
Sure.
want, you know, for former Fulbright scholars usually have this J2 visa requirement to return for 2 years to their countries. I was wondering if the eligibility for the national interest waiver will differ based on whether currently they have a medical license to practice medicine in the US.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking about the J waiver or?
So my question is about whether former Fulbright scholars who have the 2-year home requirement are eligible for the national interest waiver, like for the EB2 process.
Right. Well, I mean, as long as you either have done your 2-year requirement or you have it waived, then you could apply for the NIW. I mean, this is for people that are both in America or people that are living abroad. Anyone from anywhere in the world can do an NIW.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yusuf.
Okay, thank you very much. Basically, I have 2 questions, but I'll just say the first one. So is this possible to add like one spouse and a dependent child after getting I-140 approved?
Yep. So
So
once you have your I-140 approved, that is only for you. Then it's in the I-485 or consular process stage. Once your visa bulletin shows that your priority date is current, then you can also add in your family, as long as your child is, meets certain requirements, assuming that they're young and they're not married.
Okay, okay. Even though I didn't include it in my I-140 application.
Well, usually in your I-140, they ask for family information, so you would have to add in the family information, even though they're not like the I-140 applicant you are.
Okay.
Awesome. Abhishek?
Yeah, my question is like, people on H4 or H4 EAD, can they apply for this EB2 and NIW?
So a lot of our clients are the H-1B holder, and then they go for the I-140, and then their H-4 spouse can get an EAD with just an approved I-140. That's the only scenario where an approved I-140 before the green card process gives anyone an EAD. So that's typically how it goes. I mean, if your H-4 spouse, is somehow eligible
Yeah,
for
because the
NIW, meets
thing
all
is
the
like,
requirements.
I see the H4 profile or the H4 EAD profile of my, spouse is more, probably close to getting EB2 and NIW rather than mine. So instead of,
Okay.
depending upon mine and being rejected or whatever it is, I know I am, thinking that, to go with that route. So
Right,
just,
right. Yeah, yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do an NIW.
okay. So, but how
Whoever
will
has
the,
a stronger profile.
okay. So they can get the NIW and then for working, they will have to, be on H4 EAD status.
Right. Yes, because you would not be able to work until you got a green card with the NIW.
Okay.
Jaya Krishna and then Sindhu.
Hello. Thanks for that session. So one question. I don't know if this is a little bit digressing from the fact, but I'm also exploring EB1A. Is there a possibility, like say, I have a couple of years to build my profile. So what I was thinking is I'll go with the EB2 and NIW. I've been in the industry for almost 17 years with a master's degree, and I feel I'm qualified. Is it going to help with the EB1 journey at all if I get the EB2 NIW approved?
Yes, so we have a lot of clients that start off with the EB2 NIW, and then they do profile building until they're ready for EB1A. And then you can use your priority date from your NIW and port it over to your EB1A application. So that way you can kind of not waste time and kind of let that clock start ticking already with that NIW.
Got it. And is there anything obvious, do you recommend like in any time period that I should be looking at, like get EB2 and NIW, like build profile for a year or two? Is there any recommendation?
Well, if you already have a master's and it sounds like you have a lot of experience, it doesn't sound like you would probably have too much more profile building to do for an NIW. The standard is a lot lower than an EB1A. So, as long as you have a proposed endeavor that would be impactful to America, that's really the entire premise of the NIW. You might be able to just do that now, and then kind of, we advise people all the time that do the NIW and then how to kind of help them get to that EB1A status, for that application.
Got it.
All
Thank you.
right.
Yeah.
Sindhu?
Thank you for the very insightful session. As a follow-up to what Aditi asked, and also reflecting another question from the chat, I have my F1 OPT right now, and I'm a full intention to applying the EB2 NIW. Do you recommend me waiting till I get the STEM OPT first and then apply for the EB2 NIW like early? Like I'm due for this STEM OPT like late this year, so do you recommend doing that, or do I start the process like right now? What do you think would be the right way to approach it?
You mean because you're already on OPT, but because it's a STEM, you get the additional time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Um, that's a good question, and it's really a tough one to answer because I've had clients that have done it before and that are fine. I've never heard of anyone having trouble afterward, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. So it's
Right.
really that's a tough one to answer because it's like kind of a little bit of a gamble, but I haven't heard of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that one is really, I guess that I really can't answer that one. I'm sorry.
Sorry for the trick question. Yeah, I mean that's the
Oh no,
dilemma.
that's a good question though. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, I mean I'm working with Aditi, so we've been going back and forth about this. But yeah, anyways, thank you so
Right.
much.
Yeah.
They're good to know that we have the acumen to even question this, right? Sometimes we just
Oh yeah.
without even knowing. All right, Sindhu, I do want to remind people that we only have time till 1 p.m. I want to respect Helen's time. Helen, is it okay if we just go to like 1:06?
Sure.
Okay, great. Awesome. Rohit and then Swara.
Hi, thanks for the session. My question was regarding proposed endeavor. How do you recommend defining a proposed endeavor to sort of avoid being too narrow, so as to limit future career growth in adjacent areas, or too broad so as to risk RFE or denial? For
Yeah,
example,
you don't
like,
have to.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh no, I was just going to give an example as to like, would software engineer developing AI algorithms be a good proposed endeavor, or should it be more specific in terms of, for example, for a self-driving company, or more specific in like mixed reality? Yeah.
I don't think you have to make it too narrow. I think it just, you know, kind of defining what's the problem in America that you're trying to help. And then, like I said before, like if you're in AI, machine learning, engineering, like, data analytics, they can be applied in multiple different, pretty much almost every industry would be able to benefit from that. So, if you happen to have a certain focus that you're kind of looking to stick with, but I don't want to like pigeonhole anyone to have to stay in a certain way and not be able to pivot. So I would definitely just make sure that you're not making it too narrow. So you want to ask, what is the problem I'm helping to solve? What is going on in America that I'm going to help contribute to? So that's kind of like a way of figuring out how to make it more broad, I think, instead of just, making it so niche that it's only for healthcare or it's only for, transportation or whatever it is. So if it can be applied across industries, I would definitely make it broader and then just say that, you would then discuss how you're well positioned to do that. And you would say, because you have this particular knowledge and it just happens to be in transportation or healthcare or whatever it is.
Awesome. That makes sense. Thank you.
All right, Swara.
Thank you for providing the information. So I have 8 years of experience in the United States, and I have worked in the wireless communications field. I just got exhausted on my H-1B visa last year, and I'm interested in applying for the NIW EB2. I want to know, like, so I'm not working right now. Can I, like, is it mandatory to have an active employment with the company right now to file the NIW?
It's not like mandatory, but it would be recommended. So are you still in the United States then?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So I would, definitely highlight the experience that you had while you were here, the 8 years. Discuss what kind of potential employers you would be looking at. And also make sure that you tell them that, like, even if you're not employed, what you are working on to stay current, to improve your skills, just don't make it seem like time is going by and nothing is happening. It's definitely helpful to have a job, and it doesn't have to be a paying job. If you're volunteering, maybe you're on like part of a professional membership and you're, developing something with them. It doesn't have to be necessarily paid experience for you to be able to use it to help you.
Do I have to be in the same, like if I start working, do I have to like be in the same field as before, like wireless communications?
Yeah, whatever it is, it has to all be in the same avenue. of whatever it is that your proposed endeavor is.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right. Anshula.
Hello. I'm sorry, I couldn't get myself unmuted. Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Helen, for organizing this. So my question is pivoted towards PhD, and I know this talk has been about tech industry and masters and bachelors. My question is, having a PhD in healthcare and policy making, does H-1B capped exempt applying for that have anything to do with or has any effect on EB2 NIW? And another question supporting that is, how soon can I start building my profile? Currently, I'll graduate from a PhD degree in this summer. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So I would say if you're a PhD student, you don't have to wait for a graduation for that. I mean, if you're that close, then maybe I would. But if you are still like 2 or 3 years out, you know, I've worked with clients that are in their PhD or just finishing up their PhD. I would definitely, you know, if you are literally a month away from getting it, then of course probably just wait just to get that you know, official diploma and official transcript in hand. But otherwise, if you already have a master's, there's also some programs that go from bachelor's to PhD. You know, there's a whole bunch of different combinations. So if you have that master's, but you are in your PhD program, you know, you don't have to wait for that PhD. But there was another part of your question that I'm now forgetting. So
does so if I'm building my question up to just what you said, sorry about this, I'm taking up too much time right now. You said that I have to wait if I'm graduating in 1 month, which I am. So I should wait for my STEM OPT to be accepted, F1 OPT, and then I should go for my EB2 NIW. And the question that I
yes,
asked
I would
before
suggest
was,
that.
gotcha, okay. And the question that my original question was, does H-1B cap exempt applying
right.
for that has any effect?
Anshula, I'll put a pause on that. You can ask the question in the Slack community. I really want to be strict with everybody getting an equal chance to ask questions.
Got it. Yeah, sorry about that. Go
All
ahead.
right. Swara, did you already ask a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Anusha?
Hi, yeah. So my question really was how much time does it take for the attorneys to prepare the
We
case?
can't quite hear you, Anusha, for some reason.
Yeah, it's very muffled.
Let's
Are
come
you
back.
able to hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear. Good.
Okay, yeah, that was my headphone. Sorry. I just had a very quick question because all the other questions have really helped me answering my own. How much time does it take for the attorneys to prepare the case? So Heather, if we come to like, let's say tomorrow, not that the profile will be ready by tomorrow, but like how much time does it take for the attorneys to like prepare the case and then file, like 6 months, 8 months, so that I just have the timeline in mind, like.
Yeah, so that's another really tricky question. So a lot of what we do depends on you. You know, how organized are you? How quick are you to respond? Do you have your documents already organized? Are they labeled? Are they ready to go? Do you have to kind of track some things down? You know, my firm in particular tends to work with 3 weeks seems to be the thing for every stage. So we kind of go 3 by stage. So like the first stage is, you know, you filling out some worksheets for us, giving us your initial documents. We review everything, give you feedback. You know, we have to fill out the forms for you. We have to we also write all of the letters of recommendation for you also. So, you know, that takes some time. And like I said, it all depends on how organized and quick to respond everything is. So there's some people that can get it in like 2 months, and there's some people that I'm working on 6+ months just because it's like a slow communication. So I mean, overall, it would probably, even if you were like super speedy about it, it would probably take around 3 months, the quickest, I would say, just to do it. But again, like I said, you know, if maybe you need additional time, you know, it all just depends on everyone's scenario too. So I would say at least 3 months total, but that's probably not what the average timeline is. It's probably more like 4, I would say.
Got it. Okay, that was helpful. Thank you.
For folks who do have questions and their questions may not be responded to during this session, we do have a Slack community and I've put the link in the chat. I'm going to drop it again. Please join that. There are more than 12 people who have received their EB2 NIWs and 41 people who have received their EB1s. They're more than happy to answer your question. There are some lawyers in there as well. Helen, you're also welcome to join. Anusha is done. Let's do Shweta and then Meghna.
So I have a quick question. Once we file NIW, what is the timeline looks like to get your EAD card and green card? And meanwhile, how can we, I'm guessing we have to maintain our status once we file.
Right. So like I said, this is open to anyone if you're living in America or out of America. So whatever your status is in America, you have to maintain the entire time. The NIW does not give you an EAD card. You only get that once you're getting your green card during the second phase. So there is no green card there is no EAD with just an approved I-140. Only if you happen to be an H4 visa holder, then you can get an EAD, but that is not the majority of people. And I think you said something else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
there was something else part of the question.
Yeah, what's your advice? I mean, once we file it, so what I'm looking for NIW is like, how can we continue working, right? So you said we don't get the EAD card from NIW, we just get the green card, right?
Right.
So what's the timeline, like the current wait time for Indians, for example, to get the NIW green card so that they can work and stay?
That is a very long time, unfortunately. So a lot of people from India get the H-1B, and then with an approved I-140, you can just continuously renew your H-1B until you're able to get your green card. So this lets you, just keep renewing it until your, your wait is over. So that's why this is also, a lot of people kind of like that they have that kind of renewal process.
And it's just replacing with NIW.
Yeah. I think this
Okay.
question is stemming from the fact that does EB2 NIW give you any advantage over the backlog that's for regular EB2? And there is no advantage that you're getting on the backlog side, but the advantage is you get to have a priority date independent of your employer. So if you get laid off, if you leave, then your green card application does not get affected. So that's one less dependence on your employer, if you put it that way.
That's true.
Okay, Meghna? Okay, good. All right, Meghna and then Shiv.
Thank you for this informative session, Helen. I was curious if the process, the application process is any different for people applying from outside of the US. And considering that NIW does not give you an EAD, does that mean or like, is there a requirement or a possibility to come back to the US when your EB2 NIW is approved? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you're not in America, you wanted to come to America before your green card, you would still have to get any of the other visas that you would normally get. So the only difference is that once you get to that phase where you can apply for your green card, you would either do consular processing if you're outside of America, or you would adjust your status with the I-485 if you're in America. But if you wanted to come to America before you got your green card approved, you would just have to do like any other time.
I see. And is the application process the same for applying for the EB2 NIW for somebody outside of the United States, or do they have to keep in mind or be mindful of something else that they could potentially be missing out on?
No, I mean it's technically the same, but you want to show how you can impact America. So with you not being physically in America, you want to talk about how that's still possible, how what you do can be applied to America. So maybe it would be a little bit harder, just to kind of, but it's not like impossible. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you'd have to just make sure you include that in your application, how what you've done can help improve America specifically.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think end the session. For Shiv, last question for you, and then Sriram, Sayed, Sangam, and Nathan and Shiva. I'll divert you to the Slack community because we are right on time. So Shiv,
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah, Alan, this question is actually from a friend. She is currently on H-1B academic visa, which prevents you to transition to regular H-1B as they have to be part of the academic community. If she gets the NIW, does that change the prospect for the transition?
I didn't get that first half. It's been the audio's gotten a little strange.
Oh, can you hear me okay now?
It's very, it's not very clear.
I just asked this question in chat, and we can move on to the other person.
Sorry.
The only thing is that if it's put in the chat, then we won't have time. So unless you have like lightning speed to text your answer. But again, you can ask it in the Slack community. But we're right on time. Helen, any parting thoughts, any advice for people as they are walking away from today's session, pursuing EB2 NIW? What is that one piece of advice you would leave us with?
Yeah, I guess my piece of advice is to just, make sure you have a plan, because whatever status you're in now, if you're here, that has to still stay the same until you get to that green card. And if you're from India with a giant backlog, that can take some time. And if you happen to be from rest of the world, that still can take a bunch of time. So this is not going to give you a work authorization anytime soon. It's not going to let you stay here anytime soon. It's still a whole process, but there are lots and lots of people that get approved. So just don't think that because there's a few hurdles that it's impossible for you. I would just say, try and stay optimistic, and you can get creative in the way that you present some things, and that there's a lot of discretion for the officer. So you just want to make sure that you lay it out, and try not to let them have any space to make their own conclusions. Make sure that you're coming to those conclusions for them, and tell them why you're coming to those conclusions, and just try and stay as optimistic as you can.
Try and stay as optimistic as you can. It's hard, but it sounds
Yeah.
simple, but it's really challenging. But listen, thanks so much for making time to learn one more option to take care and take charge of your immigration journey. I know some folks have come here from India, from East Coast, West Coast, I don't know where else, but great job all for educating yourself, because that's something that we can do to take charge of our immigration journey. And thank you so much, Helen. And I'll see everybody next Saturday with another event. Thanks all. Happy weekend.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.